I made my boss $1.5 million, ran his entire business, and got a $25 gift card to a theater 90 minutes away. When I quit, he called legal on speaker, right in front of me. But then strangers on LinkedIn started messaging. Your exit gave me courage. This is how I walked away from a toxic job and found myself again. I didn't take the job because I was passionate about the industry. I took it because I needed a job. Something stable. Something I could show my parents and say, I'm doing okay. $45,000 a year, plus benefits. The title wasn't fancy, the office was small, and the fluorescent lights were a little too bright. But it was mine. And I was proud of that. Mark was already a big name when I joined. Senior partner. Smooth talker. Top 5 in commissions for 3 years running. Everyone respected him. Some feared him. He was charming, intense, efficient. He moved fast. He closed deals. He made money. But he couldn't manage anything. His calendar was chaos. His inbox was a digital landfill. He'd walk into meetings without reading the agenda and delegate entire client presentations on the spot. And somehow, people still praised him for being brilliant. The first week, I kept quiet. I observed. I organized what I could. I took notes he didn't ask for. By the second week, I was already catching errors before they went out. By week 4, he was asking me to sit in on calls. Just in case I missed something, he said with a grin. He didn't say thank you. But I didn't care. I was proud. Because I was useful. I was solving problems that no one even saw until I fixed them. Month by month, my responsibilities grew. What started as administrative tasks slowly morphed into operations, client coordination, proposal drafting. I was scheduling his meetings, but also structuring his accounts. I was answering his emails, but also writing responses that got forwarded to executives. I built templates.
Organisait d'archives.
Labeled documents from 5 years ago so that he could finally search by keyword. I started tracking commissions for him, quietly. Just for myself. Year 1. Over 600,000. Year 2. 1.5 million. All through deals I had managed from start to finish. I didn't want his credit. But I did want to believe he saw it. He didn't. Or if he did, he never said.
No bonuses.
No raise. Once, I got a Starbucks gift card for running his quarterly numbers. It was for $10. But every time I felt resentment bubbling, I reminded myself, this is how you grow. You pay your dues. Keep your head down, do good work, and people will notice. They didn't. There were small moments that stung, but I swallowed them. Like the time he walked into a meeting with my client deck and said, look what I threw together last night. Like the time I had to cancel dinner with my boyfriend for a last-minute client call that he forgot to attend. Like the time I coached a new team member for 2 weeks straight and he told her, you're lucky I have time to mentor. None of it broke me. But it chipped away, bit by bit, until Christmas. The office always did Secret Santa, but Mark didn't participate. He just handed out envelopes to his team.
No wrapping.
No card. Just a white envelope with our names written in rushed handwriting. He gave me mine with a half smile and said, Merry Christmas, kiddo. I smiled back. Because that's what you do. I opened it at my desk. Inside was a $25 gift card to AMC theaters. I blinked. I live in a city with no AMC. The closest one is 90 minutes away, in another state. I checked the envelope again. No note. No name.
No handwriting.
It wasn't personal. It wasn't even thoughtful. It was bulk ordered. And that was the moment. Not because of the money. I didn't expect luxury. But because of what it meant. I made him over $1 million in 2 years. And he couldn't even Google the nearest movie theater. That night, I didn't cry. I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the floor in my work clothes, still holding the gift card. And I asked myself a question I hadn't allowed before. If this is how it ends, is it worth it? The long nights, the missed birthdays, the weekends logged in from coffee shops, the calls I took while sick, the emails I answered in line at the grocery store. Was it worth being invisible?
I didn't answer that night.
But something shifted. The next morning, I went back to work. Like nothing had changed. Because nothing had. At least not on the outside. Mark was already on a call when I arrived, pacing his office, AirPods in, waving a printed deck I had stayed up until 2 a.m. formatting. He smiled at the client, told them how much time he had spent on the visuals. I made myself a cup of coffee and pretended not to hear. That became the pattern. Pretend not to hear. Pretend not to care. Pretend it was normal. I kept doing the work, because the work still mattered to me. I liked being good at it. I liked solving problems before anyone else even noticed them. I liked the feeling of being needed, even if it wasn't spoken. But something inside me had gone quiet. The part of me that used to feel proud now just felt used. And that scared me, because I wasn't the kind of person who gave up. I had never quit a job without a plan. Never walked away without checking every box, meeting every deadline, cleaning up every trace of myself on the way out. I stayed. For weeks. Telling myself that maybe it was just a bad day. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I had expected too much. Maybe the gift card wasn't meant to insult me. Maybe he just didn't think. Maybe he never thought. I started journaling again. Late at night, sitting on the floor in my pajamas, writing down everything I couldn't say out loud. The things I did that no one noticed. The things he said that never landed quite right. The way my chest tightened when someone asked, "So, do you like your job?" I used to answer yes without thinking. Now I paused. Then changed the subject. That pause scared me more than anything, because that pause meant I already knew the answer. I talked to a friend about it, someone I trusted. She worked in a completely different field, but she understood the burnout. The quiet kind. I told her everything. The workload. The praise without pay. The late nights. The gift card. She didn't gasp or say, "That's outrageous." She just looked at me and said, "You know you're allowed to leave, right?" I laughed. But it sat with me for days. Because I hadn't thought of it as leaving. I thought of it as failing. As being ungrateful. As being weak. That's what the culture had taught me. That if you walk away, you weren't strong enough to handle it. That loyalty meant endurance. No matter the cost. But now the cost was me. And I was starting to feel it. The turning point came on a Monday. I was in the office early, working on a massive quarterly report that Mark had promised to review before the client call. He didn't show. He texted me 5 minutes before the meeting. "You got this, right?"
No gritín. No explanación.
Just a quiet confirmation that I was alone in it again. So I ran the meeting. I presented the numbers. Answered every question. Managed objections. Made promises I wasn't authorized to make, but knew we'd have to fulfill anyway. The client said, "Wow, you really know this account inside and out." I smiled. Said thank you. But inside, something hardened. Because they were right. I didn't just know the account. I ran it. And yet, I was still the one not getting credit, not getting paid, not getting listened to. That night, I opened LinkedIn. I updated my profile picture. I rewrote my headline. I changed my status to open to work. I didn't tell anyone. But I was already gone. I didn't apply to 10 jobs a day. I wasn't desperate. I was intentional. I looked for companies where people stayed for more than 2 years. Where leadership actually replied to Glassdoor reviews. Where we're like a family wasn't just code for unpaid overtime. I applied to 3 roles in the first week. 2 replied. The third was silent. Which was fine. Because one of the 2 that replied felt different. They asked real questions. Not just tell us about a challenge you overcame, but what kind of manager brings out your best? What does respect look like to you?
I wasn't used to that.
I wasn't used to being asked what I needed. The first interview was on Zoom. I wore a clean blouse and did my makeup like I used to when I still had energy. The woman who interviewed me smiled with her eyes. She didn't rush. We talked about workflows. Automation. Where most systems break. I didn't realize an hour had passed until she said, "I'm sorry. I'm just fascinated by how your brain works." When the call ended, I sat at my desk for a long time. Not because I was nervous. Because for the first time in months, I had felt like myself again. A week later, I had an offer in hand. Better salary. Better title. Better boundaries. Still within the same industry, but far enough from Mark's line of business that it wouldn't even graze my non-compete. It was the kind of offer people tell you to take before you burn out. I didn't accept right away. Not because I was unsure. Because I wanted to finish things right. So I waited. 3 more days. Just enough time to finalize a plan. I pulled aside one of the newer associates. A woman in her mid-20s, smart but unsure, trying to prove herself. I asked her if she had a few minutes. She said yes, a little nervous. I showed her my process. Step by step. Told her how to handle Mark. What to say. What not to say. What deadlines mattered, and which ones were just noise. She listened like it mattered. And I realized this was the first time I had ever been able to hand down something I built. It felt good. That night, I opened my notes app and wrote out what I wanted to say. To Mark. To myself. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Just facts. I had an offer. I had trained someone. I was giving notice. And I was walking away on my terms. The next morning, I wore all black. Not to be symbolic. Just because it made me feel strong. I walked into his office and said, "Do you have 5 minutes?" He said, "Sure. What's up?" I told him I had accepted a new role. That it wouldn't conflict with his accounts. That I'd trained someone and had a full documentation folder ready to go. He didn't blink. Didn't ask where. Didn't say, "Thank you." He just picked up his phone and said, "I'm calling legal." Put it on speaker. He didn't look up right away. After I told him I was leaving, Mark sat perfectly still for maybe 2 seconds, silent, unreadable, then reached for his phone. No questions.
No acknowledgement. No curiosity.
Just action. I watched his fingers tap the screen like this wasn't the first time. Like this was protocol. Like he had done this before. He pressed the call button, then tapped speaker. The line rang twice. A male voice answered. Chief Legal Officer. Let's call him Gary. Gary sounded half distracted, like he'd just come out of another meeting. Mark didn't waste time. Hey, got someone in my office. She just told me she's accepted a job at another company. Still in the industry, but different function. Says it's not competing. Gary didn't say hello to me. Didn't ask for clarification. Didn't even pause to verify anything.
His voice was calm.
That doesn't matter, he said. If it's the same vertical, she's bound by the non-compete. I opened my mouth, not to argue, just explain, but Mark held up one finger. A gesture that said, wait. Let them speak. So I waited. Gary continued. Same vertical means same client risk. Even if the job's different, she could take knowledge with her. That's covered under Clause 7. She can't touch anything in our field for a year. Then, casually. She can't even mop floors at a competitor, technically. I let out the tiniest breath. He wasn't joking. Mark didn't respond. He looked at me instead. Like he was waiting to see how I'd take it. I said nothing. Because I knew in that moment that I wasn't being warned. I was being neutralized. Gary kept going. We'll need to add HR to this. If she's already accepted the offer, it's a problem. Let me patch them in. 3 beeps. Then a new voice joined the call, Sarah, head of HR. She didn't greet me either. Gary summarized the situation. She's taken a job in the same field. Says it doesn't violate the clause. Sarah's voice was steady. Almost too calm.
We appreciate you letting us know, she said.
From a policy standpoint, that does raise flags. I wanted to speak. I really did. To say, I read the contract. To say, it's not even the same product. To say, I've trained someone to replace me. I've done this the right way. But no one was listening. Because this wasn't a conversation. It was a shutdown. Sarah continued. Given the circumstances, we'll allow her to finish the 2 weeks. We do want a smooth transition. But afterward, we'll consider the relationship terminated due to breach of loyalty. Breach of loyalty. That phrase hit harder than anything else. Because it wasn't about the job anymore. It was about punishment. This wasn't legal. This was personal. The call ended without a goodbye. Mark turned the phone face down on his desk and looked at me for the first time since I walked in. You should have talked to me first, he said. I did, I replied. Just now.
He didn't respond.
I stood up. I wasn't going to beg. And I wasn't going to explain what he already knew. That I had carried his business on my back for 2 years. That I had trained a replacement out of respect. That I had followed the rules. And now I was being treated like a threat. All because I had finally chosen myself. I went back to my desk. The call had only lasted 6 minutes, but it felt like hours. My hands weren't shaking. Not anymore. Because there was nothing to tremble for. Fear only lives where there's still hope. And in that moment, hope had left the building. I opened my inbox. 15 new emails. None of them from Mark. I got up, walked to the kitchen,
Made tea.
People passed me in the hallway like nothing had happened. They smiled, asked how my weekend was, talked about the weather. Maybe they didn't know. Or maybe they did. That's the thing about quiet power plays. No one ever has to say a word. You just feel it. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost. I still came in early. Still answered emails. Still fixed what needed fixing. But the invitation stopped. Meetings I used to lead, reassigned. Clients I managed, transferred. Projects I'd built, repackaged, rebranded, retitled. I was being erased in real time. And no one said a thing. Not even the woman I trained. She avoided my eyes. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she didn't know what to say. Or maybe she did and chose not to say it. Either way, I didn't blame her. She was surviving.
So was I.
On the 3rd day, I overheard Mark talking to another partner. I wasn't hiding, I just happened to be near the copy machine. He said, "She thought she was irreplaceable. But I've already got someone better lined up.
Cheaper, too."
I stood there, holding a stack of paper, and something in me finally went quiet. Not broken.
Free.
Because once someone says that out loud to another human being and doesn't flinch, you know exactly how they see you. Not as a person. Not even as a professional. Just as a tool. Disposable. Replaceable. Expendable. The Friday before my last week, HR sent me a calendar invite. Exit interview, 15 minutes.
No agenda. No prep.
No thank you. Just one last formality before they pushed me out the door I had already chosen to walk through. I clicked accept. Then I packed up the first drawer of my desk. My last day came faster than I thought it would. No one mentioned it.
No violence.
No team photo. No email from Mark saying thanks for your time. Best of luck. Nothing. I walked in that morning knowing exactly what would happen. And I was ready. I wore the same black dress I'd worn to my final interview. Hair pulled back. Bag light. Desk already half empty. By noon, I had wrapped up everything. Double-checked transition files. Left a note for the new associate. Replied to one final client email, signing it simply, "Let me know if you need anything else before Monday." I didn't expect a reply. There wasn't one. At 1:30 p.m., I walked into the HR office for the exit interview. It was exactly what I thought it would be. 15 minutes. One form. A woman I had never spoken to reading scripted questions like, she was bored. "Why are you leaving?" I smiled. Opportunity elsewhere. "Would you consider returning?"
No.
"Would you recommend this company to others?" I paused. Then said, "Not unless something has drastically changed." She checked a box. Didn't look up. After that, she handed me a folder with some paperwork, a benefits reminder, and a half-hearted, "Good luck out there." I nodded, said thanks, and walked out.
No handskak.
No small talk. Just fluorescent lights, beige carpet, and the faint hum of a printer nearby. Back at my desk, I picked up the last thing I had left behind.
A mug.
It had a small crack near the base and said, "Monday again? You've got this." I had bought it during my first month on the job. I almost left it, but something made me take it with me. I zipped it into my bag. Then I stood, looked around the office one last time. No one looked up. No one waved. I walked to the elevator alone, pressed the button, and waited. When the doors closed behind me, I didn't cry. I didn't feel regret, or rage, or relief. I just felt done. And that, in its own way, was everything. Outside, the sky was gray. The air was sharp. Winter was finally arriving. But I wasn't cold, because I was walking toward something new. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like I was walking toward myself. The first day at the new job didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like entering a room full of strangers while holding a cracked teacup and hoping no one asked why your hands were shaking. They gave me a tour, showed me where the coffee was, smiled a little too much, tried not to talk about where I'd come from. I appreciated that. Sometimes kindness is best when it doesn't dig too deep. My new manager was a woman named Talia, mid-30s, sharp, quick-witted, dressed like someone who liked herself. In our first one-on-one, she didn't ask about Mark. She just said, "Tell me what kind of support helps you do your best work." I froze for a second. No one had ever asked me that before. I said something vague about clear expectations and autonomy. She nodded and said, "We can work with that." And that was it.
No lecture.
No test. Just space. The first few weeks were quiet. No pressure to prove myself. No one micromanaging. No sudden late-night emails labeled urgent when they weren't. At first, the silence was disorienting. I found myself double-checking every message before sending, worried I was missing something, bracing for the tone shift that never came. I realized how much of me was still living in my old job. Even though I'd left the office hadn't left me. One afternoon, Talia messaged me. "Hey, noticed you haven't blocked any lunch breaks this week. Want to take a breather together?" I hesitated, then said yes. We walked to a nearby cafe, talked about everything but work.
Books.
Music. How she'd adopted a cat during lockdown and now swears he's part raccoon. Nothing deep, nothing heavy. But when we got back, I felt lighter. Because sometimes healing starts in moments that don't look like healing at all. Just two people being human. At my desk, I opened my to-do list. It wasn't long. And for the first time in a while, it didn't feel like a trap. It felt like something I could do and still have energy left afterward. That, to me, was progress. By week 3, I started to breathe differently. Not easier. Just less like I was waiting for something to go wrong. People sent calendar invites with clear agendas. No one pinged me at 9 p.m. Feedback came in the form of questions, not commands. I still check my tone in every email. Still reread every sentence twice before hitting send. Still caught myself apologizing for things that weren't my fault. But those habits weren't theirs. They were remnants of another place. I was learning to unlearn them. Talia gave me a small project. A process audit. Something clean. Bounded. Quiet. She said, "Take your time."
No rush.
And she meant it. I did the work the way I always do, carefully, with attention to things others miss. By Friday, I had a 12-slide deck and a list of low-effort, high-impact fixes. Talia looked through it and said, "This is gold." I waited for the but. There was none. She asked me to present it to the team next week. Said she wanted them to see how I thought. I said yes. Smiled. Nodded. But when the call ended, I just stared at my screen. Because I didn't remember the last time someone had wanted my voice in the room, just to hear it. The following Monday, I presented. Nothing fancy. Just a clean breakdown of what could be better and how. No one interrupted. No one hijacked the slides. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. Then someone said, "Wait, that's actually brilliant. Why weren't we already doing this?" Another person added, "Can we implement that this sprint?" Talia smiled and said, "I told you she'd change the game." My chest tightened. Not from anxiety. From a kind of disbelief. I had gotten so used to being invisible that visibility felt dangerous. After the meeting, I sat still for a long time. I didn't cry. But something inside me softened. Like my shoulders had been waiting for permission to drop for years. And now they finally could. That weekend, I went to a bookstore for the first time in months. Picked up a novel I didn't need to annotate. Drank a coffee that wasn't in a to-go cup. Let the sunlight hit my face without guilt. None of it fixed anything. But it reminded me of who I was before I started measuring my worth in unread emails and silent calls. And that reminder was everything. By the end of my first month, things were steady. Not perfect, but quiet. And in its own way, that was a kind of healing. I still didn't say much in group chats. Still defaulted to asking, not stating. Still second-guessed whether I was contributing enough. But when I shared ideas, they were heard. When I made mistakes, no one used it as a weapon. When I logged off on time, no one questioned my commitment. It felt human. One afternoon, I stayed a few minutes late, not because I had to, but because I wanted to finish something before the weekend. Talia passed by my desk and paused.
You don't have to stay, she said.
I know, I replied. I'm almost done. She smiled, then added, just don't make a habit of overworking. We want you here, for the long run. It caught me off guard. Not the words. The fact that someone said them. Out loud. That weekend, Matt and I went to visit my parents. At dinner, my mom asked how the new job was going. I opened my mouth to give the usual safe answer. But instead, I said, I feel like I'm coming back to myself. My dad raised his eyebrows. That good? I nodded. I'm not scared to open my inbox in the morning anymore. My mom reached over and squeezed my hand. You look lighter, she said. And for the first time in a long time, I felt it too. The Monday after, I came into the office early. Same building. Same walk from the train. Same black coffee. But everything felt different. Because this time, I didn't show up trying to prove my worth. I just showed up. And that was enough. I looked around the open office, the quiet hum of keyboards and quiet conversation. And I thought, maybe this is what rebuilding looks like. Not fireworks. Not a grand comeback. Just one quiet, consistent step at a time. No drama. No approval needed. Just a woman who learned how to protect her peace. And finally, knew what it felt like to work without losing herself. It started with a message on LinkedIn. Hey, just wanted to say what you did took guts. I don't know if I could have done the same. It was from someone I barely spoke to at my old job. Quiet guy. Always kept his head down. We'd exchanged a few emails, nothing deep. Now he was saying what no one had said to my face when I left. That it mattered. That someone had noticed. Then came a second message.
And a third.
First from peers. Then from people I didn't even know were watching. I'm still there. And I'm exhausted. Wish I had the courage to leave like you did. Your exit was quiet, but it said a lot. One woman wrote, I've been feeling invisible for months. Your story made me realize I'm not crazy. I sat on my couch reading them, one after another, stunned. Because I had left thinking no one cared. Thinking I'd been written off as replaceable. Thinking my absence would go unnoticed. Turns out it was the opposite. People had seen the way I was treated. They just hadn't known what to do about it. Even now, I don't think of myself as brave. I didn't leave to make a point. I left because I was done. But apparently, that's the point some people needed. To see that you can walk away. Quietly.
Calmly. Completely.
And still be okay. A week later, I got a message from the junior associate I had trained. She had avoided me on my last days. I understood. But now, she wrote, I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye properly. I was scared. But I wanted you to know, your docs saved me. I still use them. And I think about how you carried yourself every day. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I replied, that means more than you know. You've got this.
Keep going.
Because maybe that's the ripple too. Not just showing people it's okay to leave, but showing them how to stay, with dignity. I used to think the end of a job meant the end of something big. A chapter closing. A door slamming. A career breaking apart. But now, sitting in a sunlit cafe with my laptop open, halfway through a strategy doc I actually care about, I realize. Sometimes it's just the beginning of who you were meant to be. My life now isn't perfect. Some days I still feel the old habits creeping in. Over-apologizing, double-checking things that don't need it, tensing up when I hear a Slack ping. But I don't live in those reactions anymore. Now I pause. I breathe. I choose. I don't chase validation from people who never gave it freely. I don't confuse burnout with dedication. I don't call loyalty what was really fear. I've learned the difference between being useful and being used. And I've stopped making myself small to fit inside someone else's empire. Sometimes I wonder what Mark thinks. If he noticed the drop in quality. If he missed the steadiness I brought. If he ever looked back and realized what he lost. But I don't wonder for long. Because the truth is, my story doesn't belong to that office anymore. And neither do I. Now I get to work with people who say thank you, who notice, who listen, and more than that, who respect. Not because I demand it, but because I finally learned how to expect it. The future used to feel like something far away. Now it feels close, like something I'm already touching, shaping, owning. Because for the first time in years, my success doesn't come at the cost of my peace. I left to save myself. But in doing so, I created space for a life that fits me fully. And no one gets to take that away again. Maybe you've been here too, quietly holding up the weight of someone else's success, wondering if anyone sees you. If this story felt familiar, then it's yours too. And you deserve better. Thank you for spending this hour with me. If you know someone who's been made to feel small, share this with them. Subscribe for more true stories told with heart. This is Life Stories, where your story finally gets to be the main character.